The mop clattered against the floor tiles as Naomi Reed pushed it into the storage room, her shoulders aching from 12 straight hours of carrying trays and plastering on smiles she didn't feel. Rain hammered against the windows of the small fusion diner, blurring the neon lights of Itaewon into watercolor streaks of pink and blue. The clock on the wall read 2:47 a.m. She was alone, or so she thought, until she heard the whimper. It came from behind the metal shelving unit stacked with industrial cans of tomato sauce and bags of rice. Naomi froze, her pulse quickening. Seoul was safe, but Itaewon at night was unpredictable. She grabbed the mop handle tighter, edging toward the sound. "Hello?" Her voice cracked slightly. "Is someone there?" Another whimper, then a shuffle. Naomi's breath caught as she peered around the shelving and saw him, a small boy, maybe 6 years old, curled into himself like a wounded animal. His clothes were expensive, designer labels she recognized from shop windows she'd never enter, but they were dirty and torn. His face was pale, fever-bright, and his dark eyes tracked her movements with the wariness of something hunted. Oh my God. Naomi dropped to her knees, the mop forgotten. "Hey, sweetie, are you okay? Are you hurt?" The boy flinched backward, pressing himself against the wall. His lips trembled, but no words came out. "It's okay, I'm not going to hurt you." Naomi kept her voice soft, the same tone she used with the stray cats that prowled the alley behind her apartment. "My name's Naomi. What's yours?" The boy's eyes darted to the door, then back to her. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. "Eli. Eli. That's a nice name." Naomi smiled, trying to project calm even as her mind raced. "How did you get in here, Eli? Where are your parents?" At the word parents, something shifted in the boy's expression, pure terror flooding his features. He shook his head violently. "No. No parents. No police. Please." His small hands clutched at her sleeve with surprising strength. "Please don't call anyone. They'll find me. They'll take me back." Naomi's stomach twisted. She'd seen enough in her 28 years to recognize the signs, the flinch when she moved too quickly, the bruises peeking out from beneath his collar, the rehearsed quality of his words, as if he'd been trained to say them. This wasn't a lost child. This was a child running from something. "Okay," she said carefully, "I won't call anyone yet. But you're burning up, sweetheart. You need medicine. When did you last eat?" Eli's expression crumpled. "Yesterday morning. Maybe. I don't remember." "All right. Listen to me, Eli. I'm going to help you, but I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" The boy studied her face for a long moment, and Naomi had the unsettling sense of being evaluated by someone far older than 6. Finally, slowly, he nodded. She helped him to his feet, noting how he stumbled, how light he felt when she steadied him. Every instinct screamed at her to call the police, to follow protocol, to protect herself from whatever situation this was. But the way he'd said "they'll find me" echoed in her mind. Who were they, and what would they do to a child who ran from them? "My shift's over," she said, making a decision that would unravel her entire life. "There's a night clinic 3 blocks away. We'll get you checked out, get some food in you, and then we'll figure out what to do, okay?" Eli nodded again, this time with something that might have been hope flickering in his eyes. Naomi grabbed her worn jacket from her locker and wrapped it around the boy's shoulders. It swallowed him whole. She led him out through the back entrance, avoiding the main street where late-night revelers still stumbled between bars. The rain had softened to a drizzle, but it was enough to soak through her thin uniform. Eli didn't complain. He just kept pace with her, his small hand gripping hers so tightly it hurt. The clinic's fluorescent lights were harsh after the darkness of the street. The night nurse, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a perpetual expression of exhaustion, looked up from her desk. "Help you? Naomi hesitated. "My nephew. He's got a fever and I think he might have hurt his ribs. Can you take a look?" The nurse's gaze lingered on them. Naomi's dark skin and natural hair, Eli's distinctly Korean features, but she said nothing. She'd seen stranger things at 3 a.m. in Itaewon. "Sign in here. I'll get the doctor." While they waited, Eli spoke in fragments, his fever making him loose-lipped in a way Naomi suspected he normally wasn't. "There were guards," he murmured, leaning against her shoulder. "Always guards. And rules. So many rules. Don't speak unless spoken to. Don't leave the room after 8. Don't ask questions. And Father, his voice dropped to barely audible. Father doesn't like mistakes. Your father did this to you? Naomi's hands clenched into fists. Not him. He never touches me. But the others do. When I break rules. When I disappoint him. Eli's eyes drifted shut. I just wanted to go outside. Just once. But I got lost and then I was too scared to go back. Naomi's heart shattered and reformed around something fierce and protective. You don't have to go back, she said, even though she had no idea how she could possibly keep that promise. The doctor was quick, professional, asking no questions beyond the medical ones. Mild fever, likely from stress and exhaustion rather than infection. Bruises consistent with physical punishment, but nothing requiring hospitalization. He prescribed rest, fluids, and wrote a prescription for antibiotics as a precaution. He also gave Naomi a long searching look that said he knew something was wrong but wouldn't press it. Not tonight. By the time they left the clinic, dawn was threatening on the horizon, turning the sky a sickly gray. Naomi's apartment was a 15-minute walk, and she took a circuitous route, constantly checking over her shoulder for reasons she couldn't fully articulate. The feeling of being watched prickled at the base of her neck. Her apartment was barely more than a box, a single room with a kitchenette, a bathroom the size of a closet, and a futon that served as both couch and bed. But it was hers, paid for with back-breaking work and crushing debt, and it was safe. She locked the door behind them and immediately went to work making instant ramyeon, the only food she had in sufficient quantity. Eli ate like he hadn't seen food in days, which he probably hadn't. Between mouthfuls, he asked questions. Do you live alone? Yes. No husband? No boyfriend? No. Naomi didn't mention Marcus, her ex, who'd left her with debt and bruises and a deep mistrust of promises. Just me. That's lonely. Sometimes, she admitted, but it's safe. Eli nodded like he understood that distinction perfectly. This is nice. You're home. It's warm. You can rest here tonight. Today, I mean. We'll figure out what to do after you've slept. She set up a makeshift bed with spare blankets on the floor, but when she turned around, Eli was staring at her with an expression that made her chest ache. Will you stay close? He asked. I don't like being alone when I sleep. So Naomi lay down on the futon fully clothed, and Eli curled up on his pile of blankets within arm's reach. For the first time since she'd found him, he looked like what he was, just a small, scared child. Within minutes, his breathing evened out into sleep. Naomi stayed awake, her mind churning. She should call the police. She should take him to child services. She should do literally anything except harbor what might be a kidnapped child in her tiny apartment. But every time she reached for her phone, she remembered the terror in his voice when he'd begged her not to call anyone. What kind of father inspired that level of fear? And what would he do to the person who'd hidden his son? Across the city, in a penthouse that overlooked all of Seoul like a kingdom beneath his feet, Chairman Kang Seo-jin stood perfectly still in the center of his office. Around him, 6 men stood at attention, trying not to tremble. They were all experienced, all loyal, all terrified. Explain to me, Kang said in a voice like silk over steel, how a 6-year-old child managed to escape from a guarded compound. None of them spoke. Speaking might make it worse. Kang turned to face them. At 43, he was distinguished rather than handsome, with sharp features and eyes that seemed to calculate the worth of everything they landed on. His suit was immaculate, his presence commanding. Everything about him spoke of control, of power wielded with precision. I pay you to prevent exactly this situation, he continued. I pay you to ensure my son's safety. And yet, for the past 18 hours, Eli has been missing, somewhere in this city, vulnerable, alone. Sir, we've activated every resource one man ventured, every contact, not enough. Kang's words cut like a blade. Find him. Use traffic cameras, security footage, every tool at our disposal. I don't care about discretion. I don't care about exposure. Find my son. The men scattered, grateful to escape his presence. Kang remained, staring out at the city lights. He should be worried about exposure, about the implications of his son running away becoming public knowledge. It would show weakness, invite challenges from rivals who were always circling, always waiting for an opening. But beneath the cold calculation, beneath years of carefully constructed control, was something raw. Eli was all he had left of Yuna, and Eli was the only thing in the world that Kang Seojin truly feared losing. By noon, security footage had been pulled from every camera within a 5-kilometer radius of the compound. Kang watched hours of recordings in fast forward, his eyes never leaving the screens. And then, there, a small figure slipping through an alley, stumbling, disappearing into the night markets of Itaewon. More footage. Traffic cameras. ATM security feeds. The trail went cold at the Fusion Diner, but 2 hours later, a different camera caught something that made Kang pause the playback. A woman, black, tired-looking, wearing a waitress uniform, and in her arms, wrapped in her jacket, a small boy who could only be Eli. Kang leaned forward, studying her face. She looked exhausted, worried, protective. She held Eli like he was precious, like he mattered. When she glanced around, checking for threats, there was a fierceness in her expression that was almost surprising. "Who is she?" he asked his head of security, who'd appeared at his shoulder. "Naomi Reed, 28, American. Been in Seoul for 3 years, works at the diner where Eli was found, has significant debt, no criminal record, no known associates with our world. She's nobody, sir." "Nobody," Kang repeated softly. He watched the footage again as Naomi carried his son through the rain. Nobody doesn't take in a strange child at 3 in the morning. Nobody doesn't risk themselves for someone else's son. "Sir, we have her address. We can retrieve Eli within the hour." "No." Kang's voice was thoughtful now. "Not yet. I want to know more about this woman who hid my son. I want to understand what she wants. Everyone wants something. And if she contacts the police, she won't." Kang was certain of this, though he couldn't explain why. Something in the way she'd looked at Eli, the way she'd moved to protect him. She's keeping him safe. For now, that's enough. But keep surveillance on her apartment. I want to know every move she makes. Naomi woke to the sound of Eli screaming. She bolted upright, disoriented in the afternoon light streaming through her window. Eli was sitting up, eyes wide and unseeing, trapped in a nightmare. Hey, it's okay." Naomi dropped to her knees beside him, wanting to touch him but afraid of making it worse. "You're safe. You're with me, remember? Naomi, you're safe." It took several minutes for him to come back to himself. When he did, tears streaked his face. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be loud. Don't apologize. Nightmares are scary. Do you want to talk about it?" Eli shook his head, but then words started spilling out anyway. "I was back there, in the room, and Father was standing in the doorway, and he was so angry. Not yelling angry, the quiet kind. That's worse. Your father hurts you when he's angry? No. I told you he never touches me. But he looks at me like I'm a problem he needs to solve. And then the guards come and they take me to the punishment room and..." His voice broke. "I can't go back, Nuna. Please don't make me go back." The Korean honorific hit Naomi square in the chest. In 3 syllables, Eli had claimed her as family, as someone safe. She pulled him into her arms, feeling him shake. "I won't let anyone hurt you," she promised, even as the rational part of her brain screamed that she couldn't possibly keep this child, that someone was looking for him, that she was in way over her head. "We'll figure this out together, okay?" They spent the afternoon in a strange domestic bubble. Naomi called in sick to work, probably killing her chances at the promotion she desperately needed. They ate more ramyeon. She let Eli watch cartoons on her laptop while she tried to think. Every solution led to the same problem. If she contacted authorities, Eli would be returned to his father. If she kept him, she was committing a crime. And if his father was who Eli's fear suggested he might be, someone powerful enough to inspire that level of terror, then she'd already painted a target on her back just by showing him kindness. "Nuna?" Eli peered at her elbow, tugging on her sleeve. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why did you help me? You don't know me, and I cause problems. Father says I cause problems just by existing." Naomi crouched down to his eye level. "Your father is wrong. You're a child. You're not supposed to be perfect. You're supposed to be loved and kept safe and allowed to make mistakes. Her voice cracked. And I helped you because when I saw you, scared and alone, I couldn't just walk away. Some things you just can't ignore. Eli studied her face with that too old expression again. Then he hugged her, fierce and tight. I wish you were my mom, he whispered. Naomi held him and pretended the dampness on her cheeks was from the rain that had started again outside. As evening fell, she noticed them. Black cars, expensive and anonymous, parked on the streets below. They'd been there when she'd glanced out an hour ago, and they were still there now. Different cars, different positions, but always watching. They'd been found. Her phone buzzed. An unknown number. She stared at it for 3 rings before answering. Ms. Reed. The voice was male, cultured, speaking Korean with a Seoul accent. My name is Kang Seojin. I believe you have something that belongs to me. Naomi's blood turned to ice. I don't know what you're talking about. Please, let's not insult each other's intelligence. I know my son is with you. I know you took him from the diner, brought him to a clinic, and have been harboring him in your apartment for the past 16 hours. I know everything, Ms. Reed. The question is, what do you want? I want... She glanced at Eli, who was watching her with wide, frightened eyes. I want to know he'll be safe if he goes back to you. There was a pause. Safe? He's covered in bruises. He's terrified of you. He'd rather hide in a storage room and starve than go home. So before I hand him over, I need to know you're not going to hurt him. The laugh that came through the phone was bitter. You think I hurt my son? I think someone does, and you let it happen. Another pause, longer this time. When Kang spoke again, his voice had changed, still controlled, but with an edge of something raw beneath it. Ms. Reed, the world I live in is not kind. It requires discipline, strength. I'm preparing my son to survive that world, but I have never, and would never, physically harm him. The bruises you saw were from his escape. He climbed a wall, fell into bushes. The fear is because I enforce rules that keep him alive. That's not what he says. Then he's either confused or lying to manipulate you. Either way, this conversation is over. My men will be at your door in 5 minutes. You can cooperate, or we can make this difficult, but you will return my son. The line went dead. Naomi stood frozen, phone in hand. Eli had heard enough to understand. He's coming, the boy whispered. I have to go back. Not without a fight. Naomi grabbed her phone again, pulling up the emergency number. Her finger hovered over the call button. But Eli's small hand covered hers. Don't. Please. If the police come, Father will make it go away. He always does. And then... His voice dropped. Then it'll be worse because I caused trouble. Because I made him lose face. Eli, I can't just let them take you if you're in danger. You can't stop them either. The resignation in his voice was heartbreaking. But maybe if you come with me, just for a little while, he might listen to you, he might... I don't know. But if you're there, I won't be alone. It was the worst idea Naomi had ever heard. Going willingly into the home of a man who was clearly dangerous, who had the resources to find them within hours, who could make police investigations disappear. Every survival instinct she had screamed at her to refuse. But she looked at Eli's face, saw the plea there, and knew she couldn't abandon him now. Okay, she said, I'll come with you. But if I see anyone hurting you, all bets are off. Understood? Eli nodded, something like hope flickering in his expression. The knock came exactly 5 minutes after the call ended. 3 sharp raps, efficient and impersonal. Naomi opened the door to find 4 men in black suits, all wearing the same neutral expression. The one in front spoke. Ms. Reed, if you'll come with us, bring only essentials. I need to know where we're going. To see Chairman Kang. He's eager to thank you personally for caring for his son. The words were polite, but the underlying message was clear. You're coming whether you want to or not. Naomi grabbed her phone, wallet, and the jacket Eli had been wearing. She took Eli's hand, feeling his fingers tremble in hers. The men escorted them down to the street, where a black Mercedes waited, engine running. The drive took 30 minutes, heading out of the city's center toward the mountains that ringed Seoul. The houses grew larger, more spread out, until they were turning onto a private road that led to a compound that looked more like a fortress. Walls, gates, security cameras everywhere. This wasn't a home, this was a stronghold. Inside, the house was all dark wood and stone, minimalist but expensive. Art that Naomi suspected was worth more than she'd earn in a lifetime hung on the walls. Everything was perfectly placed, perfectly controlled. The air itself felt heavy with the weight of money and power. They were led to a study on the second floor, and there, standing by the window overlooking the grounds, was the man who'd called her. Kang Seojin turned to face them, and Naomi understood immediately why Eli was afraid. It wasn't that Kang looked cruel, he didn't, but there was something in his eyes, in the set of his shoulders, that spoke of absolute control. This was a man who never questioned his right to command, who expected obedience the way others expected air. His gaze moved from her to Eli and back again, evaluating. "Ms. Reed, thank you for bringing my son home. I didn't do it for you," Naomi said before she could stop herself. Something flickered in Kang's expression. Surprise, maybe, or interest. He dismissed the guards with a gesture. "No, I suspect you didn't. Tell me, what did my son tell you about me? That you scare him, that he'd rather run away than face your disappointment, that your rules are so strict he feels like a prisoner." Kang's jaw tightened. He looked at Eli, who stood pressed against Naomi's side. "Is this true?" Eli didn't answer, just stared at the floor. "I asked you a question, Eli." "Don't talk to him like that," Naomi snapped. "He's 6 years old and he's terrified. Whatever control you think you need to have, he's a child. He needs kindness, not discipline." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Kang's eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her want to step back. But she held her ground, lifting her chin. "You presume to tell me how to raise my son. I presume to tell you that what you're doing is breaking him. Look at him, really look. That's not respect in his eyes, that's fear." Kang was silent for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he moved to the desk and picked up a folder. He handed it to Naomi. "Before you judge me further, understand who I am, and understand what Eli stands to inherit." Naomi opened the folder. Newspaper clippings, reports, photographs. Chairman Kang Seojin, head of the Kang Corporation, one of the most powerful men in Seoul. But beneath the legitimate business articles were other things. Rumors of connections to organized crime, violence, disappeared rivals. Nothing concrete enough for prosecution, but a pattern clear enough to anyone looking. "This is the world my son was born into," Kang said quietly. "I didn't choose it for him, but I can't protect him from it either. The only thing I can do is make him strong enough to survive it. That requires discipline, preparedness, and yes, rules that seem harsh. And bruises, terror that makes him strong. The bruises were from his escape, as I told you. As for the terror..." Kang moved to Eli, crouching down to his son's level. His voice gentled in a way that surprised Naomi. "Eli, do you remember why we have the 8 o'clock rule?" Eli nodded slowly. "Because last year there was an attack. Men came in the dark. You said it's safer if I'm locked in my room." "That's right. And the rule about not talking to strangers? Because people might use me to hurt you." "Yes." Kang reached out, hesitated, then gently touched Eli's shoulder. "I know you find the rules difficult, but they exist to keep you safe. Everything I do is to keep you safe. Do you understand that? But you're never happy with me," Eli whispered. "I try so hard, but it's never enough." Something passed over Kang's face, pain quickly masked. "That's not..." He stopped, seeming to struggle with words. "Your mother would have been better at this. At showing you that I..." He cut himself off, standing abruptly. "The point is, you're safe now. That's what matters." Naomi watched this interaction with a sinking feeling. Kang wasn't a monster. He was damaged, controlling his fear by controlling everything around him. But the result was the same. A traumatized child who equated love with fear. "Mr. Kang," she said carefully, "what you've built to protect him has become its own prison. He needs therapy. He needs normalcy. He needs to be a child. My enemies don't care that he's a child. They'll use any weakness. Then maybe you should consider whether your life is worth continuing if it costs him his childhood. The silence that followed was dangerous. Naomi knew she'd overstepped, badly, but she couldn't take it back. Kang stared at her for so long she started to sweat. Then, unexpectedly, he laughed, a sound with no humor in it. Bold, foolish, but bold. He moved to his desk, pressed a button. "Ms. Reed, you've put me in an interesting position. You've demonstrated care for my son. You've also demonstrated a remarkable lack of self-preservation. I find myself uncertain what to do with you. Let me go home. That's all I want. Is it?" Kang's eyes narrowed. "You have no family here. Significant debt. A job that barely covers rent. I've done my research, Ms. Reed. Your life is precarious at best, yet you risked it for a stranger's child. Basic human decency isn't that rare. In my experience, it is. Which brings me to a proposal." He leaned against the desk. "Stay. What?" "Eli clearly trusts you, more than he trusts anyone, including me. He responded to your care in a way I haven't seen since his mother died. And you seem genuinely invested in his well-being." Kang's expression was unreadable. "I'm offering you a position. Live here, help care for Eli, provide the warmth and normalcy you claim he needs. In return, your debts will be cleared, your salary will be triple what you make now, and you'll have the protection of my household." Naomi's mind reeled. "You're offering me a job as a nanny? More than that. Eli needs someone he trusts, and He paused. "I need someone who isn't afraid to challenge me when it comes to my son's welfare. You've proven you can do both." "This is insane. I don't know you. I don't know this world. And I certainly don't trust you." "Smart." Kang's smile was sharp. "But consider the alternative. You go home to your small apartment, your debt collectors, your precarious existence. And Eli goes back to his guards and his rules and his fear. Or you stay. You give him a chance at something better. And in the process, perhaps you give yourself the same chance. Why would you want me here? I've done nothing but insult you. Because you're honest. Because Eli likes you. And because..." Kang's gaze intensified. "Because when you stood between my men and my son, ready to fight despite having no chance of winning, I saw something I rarely see. Courage without calculation. Kindness without agenda. Call it curiosity, but I want to understand what drives someone like you." "Nuna?" Eli's small voice broke through. "Please stay. Please. I promise I'll be good. I'll follow all the rules. Just please don't leave me alone again." And there it was. The trap sprung not by threats but by a child's plea. Naomi looked at Eli's hopeful face, at Kang's calculating expression, at the luxurious prison around them. Every rational cell in her body screamed to refuse. But she thought about Eli's nightmares, about the way he'd called her Nuna, about the fact that going back to her lonely apartment meant abandoning him to this cold, controlled world. 1 month, she heard herself say. "I'll stay for 1 month, trial period. If at any point I think this isn't working or that Eli's being hurt, I'm gone. And you won't stop me." Kang's smile widened, predatory and pleased. "Done. Though I suspect you'll find leaving more difficult than you imagine." He was right about that, though not for the reasons Naomi understood yet. The first 2 weeks established a routine. Naomi was given a room next to Eli's, larger than her entire apartment. She spent her days with him, helping with homework, playing games, slowly coaxing him out of his shell. She learned that he loved drawing but had been told art was frivolous, that he wanted a dog but had been denied for security reasons, that he had questions about his mother but was afraid to ask his father. Kang kept his distance initially, observing from afar, but gradually he began appearing more often, joining them for meals, asking about Eli's day, and always watching Naomi with that intense, calculating gaze. The guards initially treated her with suspicion, but Eli's obvious happiness shifted their attitudes. Even they could see the change in him. More smiles, fewer nightmares, a lightness that hadn't been there before. But the fortress was still a fortress. Naomi noticed the weapons, the surveillance, the coded conversations that stopped when she entered rooms. This was a dangerous world, and she was now inside it. The 3rd week brought the first real test. Naomi woke at 3 a.m. to gunfire. She was moving before she was fully conscious, running to Eli's room. The boy was already awake, curled in his bed with his hands over his ears. Naomi grabbed him, looking for the panic room she'd been shown during orientation. But the door burst open before she could move. A man stood there, young, wild-eyed, with a gun in his hand. "Where's Kang?" he demanded in Korean. Naomi pushed Eli behind her. "Not here. Lying. This is his son's room. He'll be close. Tell me where or the kid dies." Time seemed to slow. Naomi's mind raced through options, all of them ending in violence. But Eli was behind her, and she'd promised to keep him safe. "You'll have to go through me first," she said, voice steadier than she felt. The man laughed. "American bitch thinks she's brave. Fine, we'll start with—" He didn't finish the sentence. Kang appeared behind him like a ghost, movements so fast and efficient they seemed choreographed. A hand to the wrist, disarming. An elbow to the throat. The intruder dropped, gasping, and Kang was on him, violence in every line of his body. "You came into my home," Kang said softly, pressing the man's face into the floor. "You threatened my son. You pointed a gun at someone under my protection." The intruder tried to speak but couldn't. Kang's hand was on his throat, inexorable. "Eli, close your eyes," Naomi said quickly, pulling the boy's face against her shoulder. She heard more than saw what happened next, a sickening crack, then silence. When she looked up, the intruder was still. Kang stood over him, breathing hard, his usually immaculate appearance disheveled. Blood spattered his shirt. Their eyes met across the room. In Kang's gaze, Naomi saw something she hadn't before. Not calculation or control, but raw, primal fury. This was the man his reputation warned about. This was the devil Eli feared. Guards rushed in, securing the scene. Kang gave rapid orders, his voice returning to its usual controlled tone. But when he approached Naomi and Eli, his hands were trembling. "Are you hurt?" He checked Eli first, running hands over his son's arms, his legs, his head. "Did he touch you?" "Nuna protected me," Eli whispered. "She stood in front of me." Kang's eyes snapped to Naomi. "You could have been killed. So could he. I wasn't going to just stand aside. You should have. You should have run, gotten to safety. Instead you—" He stopped, jaw working. "You stood between my son and a gun. Yes, and I'd do it again." Something shifted in Kang's expression. He reached out, and for a moment Naomi thought he might shake her or push her. But his hand landed gently on her shoulder, gripping tight. "Thank you," he said, and the words sounded like they cost him. "Thank you for protecting him." The next 2 days were tense. Kang's security went into overdrive. Naomi learned this had been a power play from a rival family, testing defenses. The breach was closed, the attackers eliminated, but the message was sent. Kang's world was always under threat. She should have been terrified. She should have packed her things and run. But watching Kang with Eli in the aftermath, seeing how he held his son close, how his control finally cracked enough to show the fear beneath, she understood something crucial. Kang's coldness wasn't cruelty, it was armor, and she'd somehow ended up inside it. The confrontation came a week later. Naomi was in the garden with Eli when a commotion at the gates drew her attention, shouting in English. Her blood froze. She knew that voice. Marcus Hale strode across the lawn like he owned it, security trying and failing to stop him without causing a scene. He'd always been good at that, making scenes, forcing his way in, taking what he wanted. "Naomi." His voice carried across the garden, slurred slightly. "Day drinking, probably. There you are. Been looking all over Seoul for you. You stopped answering my calls, stopped paying what you owe me." Naomi's hands clenched into fists. She'd left Marcus 18 months ago, after the last time he'd put his hands on her. The debts he referenced were his. Credit cards he'd opened in her name, loans he'd taken out with her signature forged. She'd been fighting them ever since. "You need to leave," she said, voice low. "Now." "Leave? Baby, I don't think you understand your situation." Marcus's smile was ugly. "You owe me $30,000, and now I find you living in some mansion? Playing house with some rich Korean family? Oh, we're definitely going to talk about this." Eli pressed closer to Naomi's side. "Nuna, who is he?" Nobody important. Go inside, sweetheart. I'm not going anywhere until... Eli started but froze as Marcus took a step toward them. So you're stealing other people's kids now? That's a new low even for you. I said leave. This is private property and you're trespassing. Private property? Marcus laughed, spreading his arms. You always did have ambitions above your station. Tell me, Naomi, whose bed did you have to warm to score this gig? The words were meant to wound, and they did. But before Naomi could respond, a voice cut through the tension like a blade through silk. I would choose your next words, very carefully. Kang Seojin emerged from the house, flanked by 2 guards. He moved with the calm of someone utterly in control, but Naomi had learned to read the signs, the set of his jaw, the way his hands remained loose at his sides. He was furious. Marcus straightened, some survival instinct finally kicking in. And you are the owner of this private property, the man whose employee you just insulted. And if you don't leave in the next 30 seconds, the man who will have you removed with considerable force. Employee. Marcus's eyes narrowed. He looked between Kang and Naomi, and something calculating entered his expression. Right. Look, I don't want any trouble. I just need to speak with Naomi about the money she owes me. It's a personal matter. Miss Reed owes you nothing. Any debts fraudulently incurred in her name are your responsibility, not hers. I've had my legal team review the situation thoroughly. Marcus's face reddened. You had no right. I have every right to protect my household. You have 20 seconds. She's not your household. She's nothing to you. Just some waitress you hired to. Kang moved then, crossing the distance with frightening speed. He didn't touch Marcus, but he didn't need to. His presence alone was enough to make the larger man step back. Miss Reed is under my protection, Kang said, voice dropping to something quiet and deadly. That means her debts are settled. Her past is irrelevant, and anyone who threatens her answers to me. Do you understand what that means? Marcus looked into Kang's eyes, and whatever he saw there drained the color from his face. Yeah, I understand. Good. My men will escort you out. If you return, if you contact Ms. Reed again, if you so much as speak her name. Kang smiled, and it was the most terrifying expression Naomi had ever seen. I will make you disappear, not a threat, a promise. The guards moved forward. Marcus went without further protest, shooting one last venomous look at Naomi before disappearing around the house. Silence settled over the garden. Eli was shaking, pressed against Naomi's legs. She felt like she might be shaking too. Nuna? Eli's voice was small. Are you okay? I'm fine, baby, I'm fine. But she wasn't. The adrenaline was crashing, leaving her hollow and unsteady. Kang must have seen it because he moved closer, his hand settling on her elbow. Not grabbing, just steadying. Eli, go inside with Mr. Park, Kang said gently. I need to speak with Naomi alone, but it's all right, Naomi managed. I'll come find you in a few minutes. Reluctantly, Eli left with one of the guards. When they were alone, Kang guided Naomi to a bench beneath a cherry tree. She sat, hands trembling in her lap. You paid my debts, she said. It wasn't a question. Yes, why? Because they weren't yours. Because he was using them to control you. Because... Kang paused, seeming to struggle with something. Because when you stood between my son and danger, you proved you're not here for money or position. You're here because you care. That kind of loyalty deserves protection. I don't need you to fight my battles, I'm aware. You've proven yourself more than capable, but you shouldn't have to fight them alone. His voice softened. Not anymore. Naomi looked up at him, really looked. In the dappled sunlight, with his guard finally down, Kang looked different. Tired, almost vulnerable, human in a way she hadn't seen before. What is this? She asked. Really? You could hire any nanny, any caretaker. Why me? Kang was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his words were careful, measured. When my wife died, I built walls. Around myself, around Eli. I told myself it was protection, but he looked away. But Eli was suffocating behind those walls. I could see it happening and I didn't know how to stop it. And then you appeared. You broke through in one night what I couldn't manage in years. That doesn't explain. You made him laugh, Kang interrupted. That first morning, I watched the security footage. You were making breakfast and you burned the eggs, and instead of being upset, you laughed, and Eli laughed with you. I haven't heard him laugh like that since he was 3 years old. Naomi's throat tightened. Kang, I'm not good at this, at feelings, at connection. I've spent 20 years being the man people fear, the man who makes hard decisions and doesn't flinch. But with you, he turned back to her, and the intensity in his gaze made her breath catch. With you, I don't know how to maintain distance. You challenge me. You stand your ground. You make me question everything I thought I knew about strength and protection. I'm still leaving after the month, Naomi said, though her voice lacked conviction. This isn't my world, isn't it? Kang shifted closer. You've adapted remarkably well. The staff respects you. Eli adores you. And you haven't run despite seeing what I am, what I'm capable of. Why is that, Naomi? She wanted to say it was for Eli, that she stayed purely out of concern for the child. But sitting here, with Kang's dark eyes searching hers, she couldn't lie. I don't know, she admitted. Maybe I'm stupid. Maybe I have a death wish. Or maybe... She stopped, uncertain. Maybe what? Maybe I see something in you that you don't see in yourself. You think you're a monster, but monsters don't shake when they check if their son is hurt. They don't thank someone for protection. They don't pay debts that aren't theirs just because it's the right thing to do. Kang's expression shifted, something raw and unguarded flickering across his features. You have no idea what I've done, the people I've hurt, the lines I've crossed. You're right, I don't. But I know what I've seen here. A man trying to keep his son safe. A man who kills to protect, not for pleasure. A man who's terrified of failing the one person who matters most to him. She met his gaze steadily. That's not a monster, Kang. That's just a man who's been alone too long. The kiss surprised both of them. One moment they were talking, the next Kang's hand was in her hair and his mouth was on hers, desperate, searching, like he was drowning and she was air. Naomi should have pulled away, should have maintained boundaries, professionalism, sanity. Instead, she kissed him back. It lasted only seconds before Kang pulled away, breathing hard. I shouldn't have. No, you shouldn't have. This complicates things. Definitely. They stared at each other. Naomi's heart was racing, her mind spinning. This was wrong for so many reasons. Employer and employee, different worlds, the danger that surrounded him. But none of those reasons seemed to matter when he was looking at her like she was something precious and terrifying all at once. I'm not good for you, Kang said quietly. My life, my world, it destroys soft things, beautiful things. I couldn't protect Yuna from it. I can barely protect Eli. You should run while you still can, and if I don't want to run, then you're foolish. Or brave. I can't decide which, maybe both. Naomi stood, trying to steady herself. I need to think, and you need to figure out what you want, because if this, whatever this is, continues, it can't be halfway. I won't be a secret or a convenience. Understood? Kang nodded slowly. Understood. She walked back toward the house, feeling his gaze on her the entire way. Her mind was chaos, fear and attraction and confusion all tangled together. She'd come here to protect a child. How had she ended up in the orbit of the most dangerous man in Seoul? The answer came 3 days later, during a business dinner Kang hosted at the estate. Naomi had been helping Eli with homework when Kang appeared in the doorway, dressed in a black suit that probably cost more than her yearly salary. The dinner tonight, he said without preamble. I want you there. I'm not part of your business world. You're part of my household. These men need to see that. To understand that you're under my protection. Why? Because after what happened with Marcus, word will have spread. Rumors will start. I need to make your position clear. What he didn't say, but Naomi understood, was that he was claiming her publicly, making a statement that would ripple through his world. And if I refuse, then I'll respect that decision. But I'm asking you to trust me. It was the asking that got her. Kang Seojin didn't ask. He commanded. The fact that he was requesting, not demanding, meant this mattered to him. Fine. But I'm wearing my own clothes. I'm not dressing up like some Wear whatever makes you comfortable. Just be yourself. That's all I want. The dinner was terrifying. 12 men, all powerful, all watching her with varying degrees of suspicion and curiosity. Kang seated her at his right hand, a position of honor that wasn't lost on anyone. Throughout the meal, he included her in conversations, asked her opinions, treated her as an equal. And when one of the men made a veiled comment about Naomi's exotic appeal, Kang's response was swift and cutting. Ms. Reed is my son's guardian, and a valued member of my household. She's earned her position through intelligence, courage, and integrity, qualities I value far more than appearance. If you can't treat her with the respect she deserves, you can leave my table. The man apologized immediately. No one else dared comment. After dinner, as guests departed, one of the older men approached Naomi. His name was Director Han, and he'd been watching her all evening. "You're different from what I expected," he said in careful English. "Is that good or bad?" "Neither. Simply interesting. Seojin has been alone a long time, closed off. Yet with you, he's—" Han paused. "Softer, perhaps. More present. That could be good for him. Or dangerous if his enemies perceive it as weakness. Are you warning me?" "I'm observing. Seojin is like a son to me. I've watched him build walls for years. If you're going to stay in his life, be certain. Half measures will hurt you both. Especially the boy." The words haunted Naomi for the next week. She watched Kang with new eyes, saw the moments when his control slipped, when he looked at her with something that might be hope or fear or both. She noticed how Eli flourished in the spaces between them, laughing more, sleeping better, starting to believe he could be safe and loved simultaneously. And she noticed how her own walls were crumbling, how she started looking forward to Kang's presence, how her heart raced when he entered a room, how his rare smiles felt like gifts. The breaking point came on a Thursday evening, 3.5 weeks into her stay. Naomi found Kang in his office staring at a photograph of a woman she recognized as Eli's mother. She was beautiful, Naomi said softly from the doorway. Kang didn't startle. Yes, she was also kind, patient. Everything I'm not. What happened to her? Car accident. Eli was 3. She was leaving me, taking him somewhere safe, away from my world. I let her go because I loved her more than I loved keeping her. His voice was hollow. She died because I couldn't protect her, because my enemies saw an opportunity. That's not your fault, isn't it? Everyone I touch is marked. Everyone I care about becomes a target. He finally looked at her. Including you, I can handle myself. Can you? Marcus was nothing. A drunk, a coward. My real enemies are smart, patient, brutal. They'll see how Eli responds to you. They'll notice how I look at you. And they'll use it. So what are you saying? That I should leave? I'm saying you should run. Before it's too late. Before you're in so deep that leaving means leaving pieces of yourself behind. Naomi crossed the room, standing in front of him. What if it's already too late? Kang's eyes widened slightly. Naomi, what if I've already decided that this, you, Eli, this broken, dangerous family, is worth fighting for? What if I'm tired of running from things that matter? You don't know what you're saying. I know exactly what I'm saying. She reached out, touching his face. I see you, Kang. Not the chairman, not the crime lord. You. The man who reads to his son even though his voice shakes with unfamiliarity. The man who personally checks the locks every night. The man who looks at me like I'm something miraculous and terrifying. I can't promise you safety. I can't promise you normal. I'm not asking for normal. I'm asking if you feel this too. This thing between us. Tell me I'm not alone in this. Kang stood abruptly, pulling her against him. You're not alone. God help us both, you're not alone. I've tried to stay away, tried to keep distance, but... His hands framed her face. But you've gotten under my skin, Naomi Reed. You've made me want things I thought I'd buried with Yuna. You've made me hope. This kiss was different from the first. Slower, deeper, full of promises and fears. When they broke apart, Naomi was trembling. So what now? She whispered. Now you choose. Stay, knowing what it means, knowing you'll be mine in every way that matters. Protected, provided for, but also marked, claimed, bound to this world. Or leave tomorrow, and I'll make sure you're safe, set up somewhere far from here. That's not really a choice. It's the only choice I can offer. Naomi thought about her old life, the apartment, the debt, the loneliness. Then she thought about Eli's laugh, about belonging somewhere, about the way Kang looked at her like she was worth protecting. "I'll stay," she said, "on one condition. Name it. You let me help you, really help you. With Eli, yes, but also with yourself. You stop treating love like a weakness and start seeing it as strength. Deal?" Kang's smile was small but genuine. "Deal. Though I warn you, I'm not easy to live with. Neither am I. We'll figure it out." The final test came 2 weeks later. A rival family made a move, not against Kang directly, but against his businesses, trying to destabilize his empire. For 3 days, Kang was barely present, dealing with threats and countermoves. Naomi kept Eli calm, maintained normalcy, and waited. When Kang finally returned, exhausted and blood-spattered, she didn't flinch. She helped him clean up, listened as he explained what had happened, and held him when the control finally cracked and he admitted how afraid he'd been. Not for himself, but for them. "They know about you now," he said quietly. "About what you mean to me. That makes you a target. Then we deal with it. Together. You should be terrified. I am. But I'm also sure. About this. About us. About staying." Kang pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. "I don't deserve you." "Probably not. But you're stuck with me anyway." 3 months after that night in the storage room, Naomi Reed officially became part of the Kang household. Not as hired help, but as Kang Seojin's partner, his woman, as he called her in front of associates who needed to understand the hierarchy. It wasn't a fairy tale. There were still nightmares, still threats, still moments when Naomi questioned her sanity. But there was also Eli's laughter, Kang's rare smiles, the feeling of being part of something larger than herself. She'd saved a devil's son and been claimed by the devil himself, and somehow, impossibly, she'd found home in the heart of darkness. "Nuna?" Eli appeared in the doorway one evening, clutching a drawing. "I made this for you." It showed 3 figures, a small boy, a tall man, and a woman with dark skin and a bright smile. They were holding hands, standing in front of a house. "That's us," Eli explained. "Our family. Is that okay? That you're family now?" Naomi's eyes burned with tears. She looked at Kang, who watched from across the room with an expression of such raw emotion it took her breath away. "Yes," she said, pulling Eli into a hug. "That's more than okay. That's perfect." And in that moment, surrounded by the 2 people who'd somehow become her world, Naomi knew she'd made the right choice. It wasn't safe. It wasn't normal. But it was hers. They were hers. And she would fight to keep them, just as fiercely as Kang fought to protect what mattered. The devil had claimed her, but she'd claimed him right back, and together they'd face whatever came next. If you enjoyed this dark romance thriller, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more captivating stories, and comment below telling me what kind of story you'd like to hear next. Should we continue with Naomi and Kang's story? Let me know. Your support helps me create more content like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.